All right, so again, this is 1.2. This is what we did yesterday. Who thinks they know where the first net goes? Yep. Straight across, very good. Where does my second net go? Yes, Chase.
It goes to the
Very bottom one, very good. And where does that third one go? Yeah, Joe.
middle.
Middle, very good. Did you guys all get it right? You are killing it with the nets. Good job. Moving on. Okay. Next thing, it says vocabulary builder. Ooh, do you think this word goes on our vocabulary list? Oh yeah, it does. This word is conjecture. Conjecture means a guess or a prediction. What do we call a guess or a prediction in science class? Yeah. A hypothesis. In math class, we call it a conjecture. Another thing you could say is a conclusion reached by inductive reasoning, but I'm not going to tell you what inductive reasoning is today. That's going to be chapter 2, so I'm not really stressed about that.
So we make it faster with a guess or prediction.
I'd write conjecture on one side, I'd write guess or prediction on the other side. Perfect. Now we are about to do a little bit of English, identify if it's a noun or a verb. I will not ask you to do that on the quiz on Thursday. I will never again ask you to do it, but let's just play along, okay? So go ahead, turn to your neighbor, decide if these are verbs or if they are nouns. Are these verbs or are they nouns? All right, team timeout. If you are on dance team or cheerleader or band, or for any reason you need to help with the assembly, now is your time to go. And again, I'll post this video later, so you will not be too far behind. Just make sure you watch it. If you are involved in the assembly, you guys can go. Are you involved in the assembly? No. But are you like a band or no? Okay, yeah. We'll all go down in a little bit. All right. Are we ready to talk noun verb? Yeah. What do we think that first one is? You make a conjecture that your volleyball team will win.
Verb.
Now. Because the make.
Ooh, I'm gonna agree. I do think make is the verb, and that makes conjecture the noun. I also believe that that letter A in front makes it that noun. What about number 5? It says, assuming that your sister ate the last cookie is a conjecture.
Noun as well.
Noun as well. What's the verb in that sentence?
Assuming.
Assuming, I wouldn't say is the verb. What's the main verb in the sentence?
Is.
I don't think it's ate.
Is.
I think it's is. That's like a participle. We don't need to get into diagramming sentences. That's a lot more, but that's not exactly it. Do we have a question? Another hand? Okay, no, I just want to make sure I wasn't ignoring you. And then again, last one, you conjecture that your town will build a swimming pool. What's that going to be? That's finally the verb. We conjecture that. The conjecture is the verb. All right, will you ever have to do that again? No. Thanks for playing along. Go ahead, flip your paper over. All right, this box, these are all vocab words. And I'm getting all the vocab words from this little word list off to the side. So I'm going to use all those lists, all those words in the like line over there to the right. And those are going to be my vocab words. Okay. I'm also going to define intersection as a vocab word right here. And I'll do that in a minute. And then in the very last line, there's a word that says non-collinear. That will also be a vocab word. So we've done net, we've done conjecture. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 up there. So now I'm at 8. And then intersection and non-collinear. Those are all my vocab words. So I encourage you to highlight them, to make a star, to put something by it so you know those are the 10 vocab words we've got to know. Okay? All right, let's do it. Now, these ones in the box, they don't have a really pretty definition. Do you see how there's not a lot of words over here? There's just pictures. The math definitions here can get really messy and confusing, so I encourage you, you're gonna know what some of these words are. I want you to define it how you would explain it to a 5-year-old and probably use a picture. That's how I think is the best to do these words. Okay, so the first one, what do we call this, where we have A with a dot? Point, very good. Which again makes sense. If I were to explain that to a 5-year-old, I'd be like, it's just that's what we call it. That dot is just called a point. Now, in that last column, that word name, I want to cross that out and I want it to say notation. Because really, geometry is almost its own language and the notation is important. And so the name, or again, I think it's better to call it a notation, matters. The notation for that is just one capital letter. So whatever letter is by that dot, that's the notation. So I'm going to say one capital letter. One capital letter. See how there's nothing on top of it. There's no dot, there's no line, there's no hat of any kind. It's just one capital letter, no other symbols. Okay. And again, I may write the word dot on my definition, like as my vocab word, because I don't really know how else to describe it. What about the next one? What's that next line a picture of? Yeah, Chase? A line. What makes it a line and not a segment or array or anything else? Yeah, Luca.
The 2 arrows.
The 2 arrows, good. So I've got 2 arrows. This never ends. It never stops. It never ends. It goes on and on and on forever. Notice that we have 2 arrows in the picture, so I have 2 arrows in my notation. And this time with the line, it's not just one letter, it's 2 letters. Because if I just have one letter A, there could be a line anywhere through A. I want to know at what point I'm going from and to. And that's the line that I'm connecting it. So this one has 2 capital letters. It has 2 arrows, it never ends, it's got 2 capital letters. Now, do you see that there is kind of this like squiggly line right there? What's that? Anyone know what that symbol is right there?
The E.
Not an E,
Oh.
it's an L. It's a cursive L, so it could be one cursive letter as well. So instead of 2 uppercase print letters, 2 capital letters, it could be 1 lowercase cursive letter. I'm gonna argue that you guys are probably not gonna use that, but I might, or the worksheet might, and I want you to know that that means a line, okay? That's 1 cursive letter. Okay, what about the next one? What is this kind of like rectangular thing right there? Plane, very good. Now, I'm gonna challenge you a little bit. How would you explain a plane to a 5-year-old? Yeah, Chase, give me something.
It's just a shape.
It's a shape, good. What else? What's another way I could describe a plane to like a 5-year-old? Yeah, Connor?
It's like a shape with points inside.
Points inside, good. Now, when I'm using the word shape, is it a 2-dimensional shape? Is it flat or is it 3D like it's like an object in real life? 2D, it's flat. So I'm gonna use the word flat and 2D to describe plane. And I like to use a piece of paper to describe a plane. Because it is as, bless you, it's as 2D as I can get in real life, right? It's kind of flat right here. It doesn't have a lot of width. If you can imagine this piece of paper going on in all directions, this is a plane. Let's find some planes in here. Look at your desk. You guys all have a desk that's a plane, right? And right now, all of our desks are the same plane, except for yours, right? Your desk is not in the same plane as everyone else, and that's okay, right? But everybody else has the same plane. If you were to make a line of your desk, your notes are all on the same plane, except for this one right here. That's okay. What's another plane that we see in here?
The wall.
The wall. The wall is a plane. What else? What else counts as a plane? The door. Ooh, right now, the door is the same plane as the wall, right? What about now?
No.
No. Where do these 2 planes touch? The hinges, right here where the hinges connect to the door, right? Another plane we have is the floor. Does the door touch the floor? Yeah, and that moves as I move the door. The plane and the place where they touch, that moves as I move the door, okay? Planes can get really confusing, so I like to think of as many 3D objects as possible. I also like to use a tissue box a lot. This has a bunch of different planes. All of its faces count as a plane. And so when I look at this tissue box, it's easy to see like how these two planes touch each other, or if this bottom plane touches any other planes, right? So this is as good as I can do to try and explain some things to you. We're not gonna get too far in depth with that, but I'm gonna keep going back to like the door and the tissue box to help explain these kind of things. All right, now when we name a plane, you got two options. One, I just used the letter P. Do you notice how P does not have a point with it? Do you see how P is just like by itself? There's no dot, there's no point. That's just the name of the plane. If there's a letter in the corner of the plane that has no points associated, it's not a point, that's the name of the plane. Another way we could do it is any 3 points that are on the plane. I could name it A, B, C. I could name it C, B, A. I could name it B, A, C. Any 3 points, and I'm going to tell you more specifically about those points later, but I can use any 3 points on the plane.
Is it only 3 or like if there's no points?
Great question. You only need 3. And if there are 4 points, you may pick a different 3 than I pick, but we can still be talking about the same plane. That's gonna be the hardest thing when you guys get into homework is I'm gonna have answers on the board and I may have plane A, B, C, but you maybe wrote C, B, A, and we have to realize that those mean the same plane, okay? So the first time we do that homework, there's gonna be a lot of questions. You're gonna be like, are those the same? Is my answer right? Is my answer right? Yes, and then we'll get to a point where you'll just be able to look and see, are those the same plane? Okay, I did specifically leave a little bit of a blank there. We're gonna talk about that more next class, because we're gonna barely touch on it at the end, okay? Now, the next 3 things I think you should know. What do we call number 10? What do we call that picture right there? Good, I'm just gonna drop the line. I'm gonna just make it a segment. And how is a segment different than a line? It stops, very good. It stops, it ends. It doesn't have any arrows, so it's just 2 endpoints. Notice that there's no arrows. Do you see how there's also no arrows on the notation? The notation is just a straight line with no arrows. It's still 2 capital letters. Everything good? Yeah? Okay. A lot of weird looking around on the back. All right, what about the next one? What do we call 11? With 1 endpoint and 1 arrow. This one is just ray. So the first one is just a ray because it has 2 points, an endpoint, and then a point where the arrow is going towards. Okay, it only has 1 arrow and 1 endpoint. And that's the same thing. My arrow, I only have 1 arrow on my notation, and the other side doesn't have an arrow. We're going to talk a lot more about the notation of endpoints or of rays in the next couple days, but notice that A is the one that doesn't have the arrow, and so the arrow is not over the egg. B is where the arrow is closest to, so that's why the arrow is over B. Do you guys kind of see that connection? Okay. I know you guys have had a really long day. You guys are doing great. Stay with me, okay? One more. This next one, does anyone know what this one's called? Opposite rays. Have you guys heard of opposite rays before?
Yeah.
I see some yes, I see some no's. I'll explain it like you've never heard it before. Opposite rays are 2 rays. You need 3 points to have opposite rays because I have to have 2 separate rays. I have to have CA, where my end point is at C and my arrow is going towards A. I also need CB, where my end point is at C and my arrow is going through B. They have to share that endpoint and they have to go in opposite directions, not just different directions, complete opposite direction. So I'm actually going to write those 2 things down. I'm going to say goes in opposite OPP. I'm not going to abbreviate because I just don't feel like writing the word opposite out. Opposite directions. And because it goes in opposite directions, it makes a straight line. And they share a midpoint. Not a midpoint, I'm so sorry, an endpoint. A midpoint means something different, I don't wanna confuse you. And I abbreviate the word endpoint, END, so end and then PT for point.
If there were 5 points, we would do the same thing.
We could find opposite rays with 5 points, yes. You probably could with 4. The only reason, the problem with 2 is that I need them to share an endpoint. So if I just have 2 points, one of my endpoints would be like B going towards A, and then the other endpoint would be A going towards B, and their endpoints aren't the same. So you have to have 3 or more in order to find at least one where they have a common endpoint. And I love that you asked more about that. We're gonna talk more about that on Tuesday. We're just kind of hitting the surface right now. All right, let me do our last 2 definitions, and then we're gonna do a little bit of deciding a little bit of work to see if we understand these planes and lines and segments. Let's define that word intersection. What does intersection mean to you guys? Chase? Where they split? Okay. What other words do we use? Yeah. Where they connect, okay. Yeah,
Cross.
where they cross. Yep, all of those are good words, where they cross, where they meet, where they touch, where they connect. I also like to say where all the points they have in common. So I'm gonna use some kind of a variation of that definition. So I'll say where they meet, or I'll say where they cross. I like cross. And then I'll also say points in common. The points in common and where they meet, where they touch, where they cross, where they connect, where they touch, whatever you want. That's all intersections. Now I've got one more vocab word. We gotta go all the way to the bottom. You guys ready for that last one? Okay. This one we're gonna break apart. It says non-collinear. Okay, let's start linear. What does linear mean? A line. Good. What about collinear? What do we call what's a coworker? Someone you work with, someone that has the same job. So coworker, same job, collinear, same line. And then non-collinear means not the same line. You guys follow me with that? Non-collinear means not same line. The reason I break that down is you may forget that, and I want to give you some tools to maybe be able to figure it out if you forget that definition. Try and break it apart. It's not the same line. They're not together on that line. Okay, so all those yellow words we talked about, those all count as vocab words. Is everybody good with that? Okay, when I say I want vocab sheets, those are the ones I want. All right, now we're gonna take a minute, and I want you either by yourself or with a neighbor or a small group, I don't care. I want you to match these 2 columns up. I think it's gonna be easier if you start in column B and figure out where that goes in column A. I want you to use this picture, and I want you to use a pencil, because if you mess up, it's gonna be a lot easier to correct. So feel free to turn and talk, feel free to move your desks, feel free to work by yourself, I don't mind, but this is where we're gonna work through it. I'm gonna give you like 5 or so minutes, and then we'll come back together, okay?
Oh, I did it.
One.
Fine. Or it would be, you know. Hang out.
Yeah, and where are you?
I'm trying to.
And this right here, plain A, B, that.
I mean, that's fine.
But that whole side there. Now, what's another name? Is it gonna be plain G, H, E? All of those 3 points on that page are shaded. No, G's not on it, right? What about D, A, E?
It's not like.
Oh, into line B. Can you read it or trace A, B?
Line Y.
Use your pencil and just show me where A, B. And then where's
The
the
plane connecting.
So the intersection of A, B. So now go back to
The bottom. Okay,
you might also, you think you got it. Okay, yeah, let's look at, let's look at intersection of A, B and line Z. Can you show me where A, B is?
A, E, and then one. It's one thing.
And C. Oh, no, sorry, I'm just reading this, see. Yeah, so
What
C
about-
and A, B, where do those two lines touch? That's the point A.
Let's go back.
Oh, I get it now.
Give us the intersection of something A, B.
Now go to the next.
Line.
You shade that line. That first all A. I'm gonna say yes. Yep, that whole face shade. Just really lightly, just so if you're gonna raise it. Yeah, because here you have to use an A plane, which they were there, that's the whole side. So now, if that's all A, it's like, so it must be down plane over here. So I would say, I would say G plane and H.
Hey, guys.
Let's go there. We're gonna roll it. Oh, you know those last ones. I'm gonna teach you those in a second. You might have guessed them, but I haven't tell you that. I want you to do 13 through 17. A, E, A. That's those up. That's what I want you to do. I'm gonna teach you the other ones. I'll be right back. Okay, what's up?
What does that match?
I'm gonna go over them on the board in a second, okay? So why don't you can check with somebody else, or you can just wait patiently and I'll be right there. So point A is only like one part, so it could not be like a plane, because a plane and a plane are the same. It also couldn't be lines, and up to it can't be a line. So, Mark, you know that his last one, I understand. I was going point A, B, C, and line B, or the intersection. So let's try one at a time. Here's A, B, and we're line B.
The second one is 15. Third is right.
So where do those?
Keep on me. Big varsity. Big varsity.
Wait, no, it ain't.
I don't know. But it doesn't look like it's crazy.
What's the line that you have?
I can tell till 2. I have till 2.
This is the line.
I have till 2. All right, can you take maybe 1 more minute and we can go over it together? Okay, finish up where you're at. 1 more minute, we'll go over it together. All right, go ahead and find a stopping point. Make sure that you can see the board with wherever you're at, and I'm gonna need some help. Who thinks that they can do any one of those? 13, 14, 15, 16, or 17? Chase, you got one of them? Which one you wanna do?
The line through point at the E, line one.
Line through points F and E is line Y. Do we agree or disagree with Chase? We agree? All right, let's go find, where's line Y? Right here, so that's that. On that line, do we have both F and E? Yeah, so that means that they're the same. There we go, good job, Chase. All right, someone new. Yep, Kate, what you got?
17 is intersection of. What is that?
Segments.
Segment A, B, and like.
Very good. All right, what do we think about what Kate said? Is point A the intersection of AB, segment AB and line Z? Yeah. If we go find line Z and we find segment AB, they touch at point A. Very good. All right, let's do another one. Who's got another one for me? Yeah, Aiden.
Plane HGE,
Okay.
contains, the last, it goes with the last.
Oh, goes with the last one. The plane containing points E and F and G.
Yeah.
Do we agree with Aiden?
Yes.
Good. Let's go find it. Find plane HGE. HGE is right here. So I'm going to shade this bottom face. Does that plane also have the points E and F and G?
Yep.
Yeah. So that goes together. Those match. Awesome. Let's do another one. I got two more to do. Who wants to do one of them? Evan?
50.
Plane DAE. Where does that go? Plane AEH. Do we agree or disagree with that one? We agree. Let's go find it. DAE is this kind of front right plane, right? DAE goes right here. Is that the same thing as planes EAEH? Yes, those all have the same points. And then what about that last one, BF? This is actually going to help us with one of the last things we're doing. BF then has to go with the intersection of planes ABF and CGF, correct? You guys okay with that? Let's go look at those planes though, right? ABF is right here. ABF is this plane right here. That like back right one. And plane CGF is the back left one. That's like when I was talking about the door and the wall. Remember they connected at the hinges? This now connects at the segment BF. Okay. Are we okay with that? Okay. Can we do the last four things right now? These are postulates. And actually, boys in the back, you guys were trying this and I bet you got some of them. So don't erase what you have because you might know this. I call some of these like, oh, duh theorems. Like we're going to go over it and you're like, duh, I knew that's what happened. But we're going to actually verbalize it, okay? So these postulates, these are going to be part of your vocab. And I would write like the stuff that's written. So I would write on one side of your note card through any 2 points is exactly one. And then on the back side, write whatever goes in the blank. Does that make sense? Okay. Through any 2 points, there is exactly one what? One line. Good. If I have 2 points, there's exactly one line. Okay, what about the next one? If 2 distinct lines intersect, then they intersect in exactly one. Yeah, Evan? Point. 2 distinct lines means that they're 2 different lines. It's not the same. So that whenever they intersect, they must intersect at one point. All right. If 2 distinct planes intersect, then they intersect in exactly one. We're going to go line. Remember that planes go on infinitely? That's like this picture drawn up here. I want it to be a line though, because I want it to go on forever. And the last one, through 3 non-collinear points, there is exactly one plane. Good. Now, before we hustle to put our notes away, I do want to do one more thing on the paper. I want you to go up to the top paper and we're gonna write something, okay? We're gonna write with point, line, and plane, we're gonna write the 3 undefined terms of geometry. So because they make up the postulates, it's hard to define, like when we were talking about what do I even write on the back of a point? I don't know, it's just a point. That's how it is for point, line, and plane. So those are called our 3 undefined terms of geometry. The reason I'm having you do vocab this weekend is because we're not ready to do anything else yet. We just learned some words and I need you to know these words for us to do more with them on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and all that stuff. Yeah, Luca.
So the vocab is the ones that start in the.
Yep, and then conjecture on the other side of the paper. And then net at the very, very front. Mhm.
Or-
I don't have any note cards. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Where would I find